Now, today is Thursday, and as ever, it is the day of the week when we take a look at some of the top stories of the week in the United States. Lots to talk about, and I'm joined this week by Angie Wong, Republican strategist, who joins us from Florida. We're also joined by Hank Scheinkopf, a Democratic strategist, who joins us from New York. Thank you very much indeed to both of you for joining us. Just before we crossed you, we were talking about the latest victim of the Epstein files, the Prince, formerly known as, Andrew, formerly known as Prince Andrew, is in custody. He's been arrested. And I just want to ask you, I mean, there's a never-ending torrent of scandal coming out of these files. Hank, let me ask you, how's all of this playing out in the United States right now?
Well, people are having the best time they've ever had because it's a scandal that touches both Republicans, Democrats, and everybody else. And they just don't know what to do with it. But the consensus among Democrats is that everything that the Justice Department has done, for example, has been to shield the President of the United States from any potential involvement in any way that they can.
Okay, I mean, Angie, the week began and it was all eyes on Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, after the weekend hearing, the House Judiciary Committee hearing. I mean, what's the feeling about how she handled that and how she's handled the whole process of releasing the files?
Well, certainly Democrats have been blasting Pam Bondi for not answering any real questions. All of this is just a preview to the Clintons having their depositions on February 26. So they're already putting up excuses and walls. I want to congratulate the Metropolitan Police and the Thames Valley Police for making one of the first arrests in the Epstein files with the new revelations of over 3 million files being released. We would love to see the same thing happening here in the United States. We would like to see the accountability and also additional prosecution of those who committed crimes with Jeffrey Epstein. So we do congratulate those in the UK. I know it's a very sad moment for the British monarch, and we wish him the best, but we're actually happy to finally start seeing real accountability happening with all the victims.
Hank, how far off do you think that accountability is in the US?
Listen, this case has been going on for a long, long time. The NYPD had it done years ago, and the FBI engaged itself unnecessarily, probably. Leave it to the NYPD, by the way, to get the job done. The Florida authorities had Epstein. They convicted him. It's absurd, and it should come to conclusion. Let's get the files out, release the names, do what we have to do, and get on with our lives. This will color the elections coming up in many, many ways. It's a question of morality, and it goes against the American grain in so many ways.
Right. I mean, we're, what, 7, 8, 9 months away from the midterms. I mean, there are more files to come, aren't there? I mean, Hank, is the sense that the files that are still to come are going to be the most explosive?
Well, that's always the case when you have a scandal. You know, you believe in the front end, having handled scandals for an awful lot of people, that somehow the worst is yet to come. And, you know, for the American political system, the worst is yet to come.
Would you concur, Angie?
Well, Pam Bondi did say during her hearing that all the files have been released. Now, there are some files that are held back due to a judge sealing them. Whether or not those are going to be released, whether or not names will be unredacted, we're not entirely sure. But we know that the Clintons are nervous because they want to see the whole lot before they step into Congress in about a week's time to do their own testimonies. They don't want any gotcha moments. So I do expect more files to be released. Funny enough, New Mexico has opened up another case looking into the Epstein files. They're going to have more legal avenues because of this new investigation that's opened up there.
Okay, let's move on to our next topic. The flurry of diplomatic activity this week in Geneva. Two sets of really high-stakes talks. Let's start by talking about the Iran talks. There's a lot of concern in the region I'm speaking to you from that, you know, things could escalate, and if they do escalate, it would mean a regional war potentially. Hank, do you think the US wants to deal with Iran, or is this all the US going through the motions and it's just a prelude to a war?
The United States has been fooling around with Iran for a long time. We have not resolved it since the seizure of hostages in 1978. Iran is engaged in international terrorism, that we know, and that's documented and not speculation. Question is, will the United States understand that the Iranians are serious when they say they're not doing anything, because they're not doing anything from their minds, and they intend to dribble this along? The Americans have to make a decision about whether they stop the dribbling or whether they don't. And if they don't, they will look very silly in the region and throughout the world.
Angie, what are your sources telling you? I mean, you've got all this US military hardware that's been deployed to this region. There's more on the way in the form of the world's largest aircraft carrier. Are we looking at the prelude to a regional war?
I think President Trump has a lot of options on the table right now. He still wants to have diplomacy first. That's what Caroline Leavitt had just said yesterday. They're still looking for a diplomatic way of solving this. But meanwhile, he's positioning as much military, U.S. military, in the region just in case these talks fail. And hopefully that's going to be enough pressure to get everyone to the table to really have serious talks. So far, everything's been very fluffy. But that is what's happening right now. I know a lot of U.S. military personnel have actually left or gone to other European bases. That was ordered by the Pentagon. But funny enough, Pete Hegseth was doing a fundraiser in Missouri yesterday. So if he's still out and about partying, doesn't seem like they're taking it all that seriously. But at the same time, the news is telling us that strikes could happen as early as this weekend.
Yeah, and we know President Trump likes an element of surprise. And do you think, Hank, therein could be part of the surprise and the fact that a lot of people have got this full sense of security? Oh, well, the USS Gerald Ford won't be here for another 2 weeks, therefore nothing's going to happen for the next 2 weeks. Does that sound like a potential smokescreen to you, Hank?
Absolutely a smokescreen. This problem has been festering for quite some time. The United States does not want an active nuclearized Iran in that region, nor do the Saudis, for that matter, or anyone else. The traditional battle here between the Sunnis and the Shias is yet to be resolved, and it's part of the conflict. Will the Americans permit a nuclearized Iran to interfere with international relations that they have, and frankly, monetary relations as well? And the answer is no. It's not going to go on, and unless the mullahs decide to sit down and negotiate, there will be a conflict.
Okay, the other talks in Geneva involving the same, presumably quite overstretched and, potentially outmatched duo in the form of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, talking to these veterans on the other side of the table. When it comes to the Russia-Ukraine talks, any progress, Angie, do you think?
Yeah, overstretched is the right word. I think all parties are exhausted with these talks. There were no major breakthroughs on the core issues. There's no land being given up by either side. It doesn't seem like it was very positive. Meanwhile, today at the White House, there's going to be the Board of Peace meeting in Washington today, and they're going to start the rebuild of areas that were bombed out in Ukraine and also in Gaza. So they're going to plow through this and start rebuilding so that citizens can start moving back in or not. I'm not sure, but they already have plans to move forward post-conflict. So I think all these things are positive signs. I don't think they're going to wait for Vladimir Putin or for Zelensky to finally happily agree. It looks like those two are like oil and vinegar. They're never going to agree on everything. But meanwhile, lots of money are being invested in those regions.
Okay, Hank, I mean, do you think there's a risk that if a deal isn't reached fairly soon between the Russians and the Ukrainians, President Trump is simply going to lose interest and walk away?
I think he's already lost interest, frankly. This is a great confrontation in Europe. It's historical. He who controls Central Europe controls the world, and the Germans are very nervous that the Russians will see this as a prelude to walk right back into Europe. Now, people who don't understand European history will look at the dawdling that can't resolve this conflict and say, by the way, so what? But so what is big here? And the Americans have to figure out a way to bring this to conclusion, which they've not been able to do. And it does not look good for the Americans internationally that they can't do this.
Okay, well, let's move on to a slightly lighter subject, our last subject of the day before I let you both go. We're going to talk in a moment, actually, to an expert on UFOs, because the former US President Barack Obama was in the headlines, not for the Epstein files, I have to say. He's one of the names that doesn't get mentioned too much, I don't think, in those files. He's been making comments about aliens. And I just want to ask you, Angie, what sort of conversation has this been generating there?
Well, I think Hank would know this. In crisis management, you always want to redirect the narrative. And, former President Obama as well as Hillary Clinton. They've been making the media circuits a lot lately. And we're not sure why, but I think they are trying to turn the narrative. And there's nothing that unites Americans on both sides and in the middle than aliens. So I think that's why he's talking about aliens all of a sudden, is to kind of steal some of the headlines away from the Jeffrey Epstein files, steal some of the headlines away from other matters that are happening here in the U.S. Call it conspiracy theory. I love it. I love to know if aliens actually do exist. He just confirmed it today, or rather this week.
Okay, Hank, I mean, I don't know if you believe in aliens or not, but do you agree with what Angie just said, that this is all a bit of a distraction tactic there from the Team Obama?
Well, my Republican colleague this morning is very smart, because it is a way to distract people from the moment. But I also think, knowing Barack Obama's real literacy and capacity, is that he's alluding to something else, which from his perspective, Donald Trump is an alien to democratic practice. And he's already said that pretty much constantly since the Trump administration began.
Okay, and Hank, let me just ask you another question. I mean, we then heard President Obama, the former president, who originally said, yes, I believe in aliens, then backtracking a bit on some of his comments the next day. And that's got people wondering whether he's perhaps got something to hide. I mean, has this got the conspiracy theorists working overtime, this story?
Conspiracy theories have followed American politicians since the beginning of time, going back to Washington, Jefferson, Hamilton, you name it. So that's not new. What is new is that, sometime when you sound nuts in public life, you want to get away from it as quickly as possible. And that's what the former president sounded like he lost his mind momentarily. So what's new?
Okay, well, we've just found out there that Hank does not believe in aliens, Angie. But are you hearing lots of conspiracy theories online about, is perhaps former President Barack Obama trying to hide something here?
Strangely, not that much. You would imagine that all the enthusiasts would be jumping online looking for signs of life outside our universe. But I think Hank is right. I think Barack Obama, he didn't really answer the question, but he did enough just to kind of spark an interest. But, for the most part, those headlines did not grab as hard as I thought they would. I think that Hank is absolutely right. He's probably referring to the illegal aliens that have crossed our borders. Maybe that's what he was, trying to make a reference to in a clever way, but it came across like outer space instead.
Okay, well, you've had the last word, Angie. Angie Wong, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Always a pleasure. And thank you as well to Hank Scheinkopf. Thank you both very much indeed for your time.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Tom.
All the best.
Thanks, Hank.